Good afternoon, Scott Baker.
Mikey, how are you? It is a Sunday edition of Lead Better. This is the 20th of July, and this would be the 1,501st field note since we launched 4 years ago. Pretty impressive.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry not to have been with you yesterday to commemorate 1500. I was with you in spirit in the background as you had to do solo, but I think my Wi-Fi situation is a little better today.
Well, yesterday's topic was on sort of the dangers of over collaboration. So I thought it was appropriate that I just didn't collaborate at all and did it all on my own. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that was fine. Now, today's
Great example.
today's is a lot of fun. Certainly, the headline is provocative. Leaders obsessed with excellence can become monsters. And
Yes.
monsters is a great word to have in a headline of anything that you do online because people are like, what are you talking about? And the idea of excellence, though, we think of as a good thing. But
Yeah.
obsessed is obviously the warning sign here. And certainly we've all seen leaders who had excellent standards, high standards, inspired that. But you can go overboard. And I have seen that a lot in leaders over my career. And I'm sure you have as well.
Yes. And at its core, this is why there are so few admired leaders in the world, right?
Yeah.
You could probably point to lots of people that you know who are excellent, who perform in an excellent way, who drive people results by really tightening the screws down on them. Um, but when it comes to those leaders who have the ability to both inspire people, but also have the ability to create followership, it's a rare breed who actually
Yeah.
do that. And in a lot of cases, there's probably more monsters in the world, by the definition of what we said, than admired leaders.
Oh, yeah, I think so. And it's a great way to set this up. You're introducing this idea that admired leadership is this intersection where, yes, we want to drive results. We need that level of productivity in our teams and ourselves. But we also want to have an ability to, when we say followership, that's kind of a weird word. It's a relational word. And sometimes you have leaders who are really effective in driving results, not so much on the relationships and the followership. But you can also go the other way. That's a different field note, right? That would be the person, the leader that wants to be popular, that seems to bond with people. They're well liked on the team, but yet their results are kind of up and down. It's the rare admired leader that is in the middle, and that is a very rare thing. Probably in our study of 12, 15,000 leaders, maybe it's 400 or 500 leaders that have ever kind of qualified to say, this is the kind of person that just can really drive the relational results, but also the organizational and work product results as well. So in the warnings in this field note, it's not a diminishment of saying you got to tone it down on the excellence thing. It's let's get this
Yeah.
defined in context, because I think actually those leaders who think that they're obsessed with excellence and think that they're doing it the right way probably just have a flawed definition of what excellence is. Because if you really look at this, they're actually not being excellent.
Right, right. No, if they apply their idea of excellence into relationship behaviors and recognize them as skill that they can build, I think a lot of these people who focus on excellence can get there, right? Can practice the behaviors of admired leaders. And I think a lot of times they just don't think of leadership development in those terms. That
Right.
that guy, Bob is good at relationships. That's not me. I'm going to be focused on results. And if you instead break it down that, okay, the behaviors that Bob is practicing are ones that you can practice as well, then maybe an excellence person could get there.
Well, one of the interesting things is that the field note lists the kind of statements that we hear from those kinds of leaders. I cultivate an aura of ferocity. I don't apologize for projecting a relentless intensity in everything I do. I deliberately exude an uncompromising drive. I possess the ruthless ambition everyone else would like to have. I let my passion and my intensity speak for me. All of those kind of things. And they think that they find that inspiring in some way. And maybe it is inspiring to them at some level, but we've got to get past that, because the thing that came to my mind was, I remember years ago going to hear Anthony Bourdain give a talk. And on that particular talk, he had his friend Eric Ripert, the chef at Le Bernardin in New York City, come. And they actually called it, it was sort of like an angel devil tour, right? Like, who's the good person, who's the bad person? Ripert is, I think he might be a Buddhist. He has this very calm, sort of presence. but he didn't used to be that way, right? So when he was coming up as a chef, there was that idea of the dictatorial chef who screamed at everyone, who had these standards of really high excellence. And the way that you got there was by saying, this is how it's done. And then you just screamed. And at some point, he realized that he was driving everybody away. His certainly had a fantastic restaurant, for certainly tremendous reviews, probably had a couple of Michelin stars. And in the middle of all of that, he realized, oh, to be excellent, you don't actually have to do it this way at all. And he went through a transformation, and he's totally not like that now. Now, that's a huge thing to switch your personality. Maybe we can all be a little bit more like that, but it's tough.
Right. Did Bourdain go through a similar kind of thing? Did he have a reputation prior to that was more hard driving results?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's certainly the case. If you read, I remember reading his first book, Kitchen Confidential, when it first came out, and I think he was probably more fun to work with than Eric Ripert back in the day. If I'm saying Ripert right, I believe I am. But when Anthony Bourdain was at his first restaurant or two, I think these were rough and rowdy ways, as they say. So in all of that, he checked out and went in a different sort of more literary direction. But I think this idea of saying, well, what are we defining as excellence? Can you be the leader who has that level of that standard of what it looks like, but you're applying it in a way and you're leading others along in a way that is actually generative to everybody? Because the truth is, the way, and it comes down to that sort of grind culture. I can do it. I'm going to work 85 hours a week. I'm going to be in the office 15 hours a day. I can outperform everybody. And the truth is that, especially in creative work, you look at this and examine it, and people start to lose that ability after even 3.5, 4 hours of intensity. You can fill out the time, but you're still not getting anything done. You're not sharpening the saw, as Stephen Covey used to say back in the day.
Well, is there anything to be said about the CEO who is this way, but also is trying to build a culture that is entirely that way as well? So they don't want anybody working in their organization who isn't that way too, right? You might even look at an organization like NVIDIA, who in the book, The NVIDIA Way, it seems to kind of paint the picture that the CEO, Jensen, would have this kind of, work 18 hours a day kind of mentality, expect others to work that way as well. And if you're going to burn out, I'm going to actually offer you a rich severance package to go ahead and leave really early on, so that we're not wasting our time with you.
Yeah. Well, I think there's
work for some.
Yeah, I do think there's a way to define this, and some things are. One guy that I like sometimes says, nothing is really difficult. It's time consuming, right? You could be on a pre-med track and you're taking organic chemistry. It's not that it's difficult. It's time consuming to get that particular set of work done. And when we put doctors into residencies and all of those other things, it's a time consuming process. And they're trying to break you down much like they're trying to break down potential Navy SEALs and all of that. But in most of what we say, people sometimes invent sort of structures or morning routines or exercise routines or other things that they're very proud of, but that aren't in and of themselves the productive output, right? They're not the thing that actually makes the effect, the dent in the universe that we'd like to make. And I think that's really the question, because we often say, particularly around our admired leadership behaviors, the content that's not as much in our daily field notes, which are free for everybody, but in some of our other coaching and our platforms and available to clients, that they're very simple. Like some of the ideas, the hundreds of behaviors we have can be explained in 3 or 4 minutes. And we're often looking at people that are writing about leadership or other areas related to it, and you're like, you're making this way more complex, because a lot of people can take a brilliantly simple idea and make it wildly complex in order to make themselves look smart, right? Genius is in making that thing and making it so simple that even a 12-year-old can understand it, like Feynman used to say.
Right.
And I think that's the case here, which is you can try to define business excellence as that 18-hour grind. Is it? I think it's worth examining, because if it's something only you can do or only a select few can do, you might not actually be able to scale that. And maybe the kind of people that are buying into that are not the ones that are going to be most productive in the long run.
Right. I think As illustrative of what you're talking about, third-party compliments are a good example of that. And it's one of those simple behaviors that when people hear about it the first time, they're like, oh, I do that. What you're really probably saying is you can think of one time that you've done that in the past.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Not a behavior that you continually practice. I would encourage anyone who's listening right now who wants to get just a slice of the kind of simple behavior that Scott just talked about is to Google third-party compliments, look for it on our Admired Leadership site, and completely understand. There's a video on it on our YouTube channel as well.
Yeah,
and understand this is the simple behavioral kind of thing. It's relational. It has to do with feedback as well. And it's for something that an excellent monster, like an excellent monster, they're usually very stingy with feedback. Like they are stingy with praise, I should say.
Yeah.
So they don't want to just hand out praise willy-nilly because they know what excellence look like. And so they have a tendency to develop this apprehension to just hand out encouragement and praise until they actually see it. So they have a problem oftentimes in trying to figure out how to give out compliments because they don't want to give out cheap compliments. Third-party compliments, go watch the video. It's an excellent way to be able to kind of wrap your head around some of the behavioral things that we're talking about.
And it's a relational behavior, right? We have things that we do to demonstrate as leaders our competence, but we also have to demonstrate our character. And that's, I think, the challenge here in this whole field note around the leader who's obsessed with excellence, but has become a monster. Because if you're just your level of excellence is only defined by driving results, but not about actually how you motivate and inspire, how you build relationships, how you develop a team of leaders, well, then you're very, very deficient. And you need to actually start thinking, well, if I'm not able to motivate and inspire, if I'm not able to give effective feedback, well, then actually my level of excellence is at such a low level. And why have I been spending all of my years and all of my time trying to drive only one aspect of what it means to be a leader in an organization? You need to broaden that out. And I think then it's not that you have to go about things in a way that makes leadership or the work that you're doing easy, but it should look somewhat easy, right? When we look at real masters, people who are real virtuosos, that level of virtuosity makes it look so elegant, whether you're the ice skater who can do, 4 spins, whatever they call them, right? You're like, oh, that looks so easy. Well, you know that it's not. You know that 10 years, 15 years went into that, but they make it look easy. So why do we think that if we become the excellent leader, that you need to be out there just sweat pouring off of you, blood coming out of your pores, and be like, you're not all following me. Look how hard I'm working. Wouldn't it be the true definition of the master, the person who really is excellent, that it doesn't even look like they're trying that hard? We know you are, but it doesn't look like it. Can't you inspire that level of virtuosity?
Right. Most of these monsters only motivate, inspire with carrot or stick in a way that they only know how to like hand out benefits or cash to inspire people.
Sure enough.
They only, but what they're really good at is the stick. They're really good at, and the way they motivate has a tendency to hit themselves with the stick, to let everybody know they can take it and you should be this way too. Yeah. And there's more ways to motivate people besides carrot and stick.
Yeah, there certainly are. Now, I do want to say that at the end of the day, as our Joe Watson likes to say, this field note is not about saying, just ratchet down your expectations, be less excellent. That's not it at all. You can have the same high level. In fact, we have there's a whole sense for ourselves of, are we reaching as high as we should be reaching? I think each of us can say, there's ways that we can conceive of our work having greater impact, greater fruitfulness in the world beyond what we're doing that doesn't just equate to amplifying the grind. And the same thing for our organizations. And so I remember when I first was going from politics into journalism, I had worked in politics at kind of local levels and at presidential levels. Well, what I found is that working on a presidential campaign was not twice as hard as working on a local state election. It was a little bit harder. They did it differently. The standards were higher. And then when I went to New York and I had a fellowship at CBS News, And when I left CBS News, I went into local television, and you got to a very small market. Well, different animal, but guess what? Doing a network quality, and I know that there could be an oxymoron in that, but a network quality broadcast isn't 1,000 times harder. Now, I found that the people in the smaller market were like, well, this is just how we do it. And I was like, it's not good enough. It's not that I had to then say, let's double down and like work all around the clock and make this, sort of this anguish effort thing. It's like 10 or 15% harder. It's just elevating a little bit of those standards. And what happens is when I would do the newscast in the small market, I did it the same way I would do it if I was preparing to do something for the network level. If you do that, well, then that all comes together. But in the end, we all know you can't, as we've made fun of the quote when the one football coach was like, "Are you ready to sprint if the distance is unknown?" Well, after a couple hundred meters, you can't sprint anymore, no matter what. So the magic in this is, as Naval says, it's a marathon of sprints. You need to pace yourself. You will be more effective. We know you're more creative. Most knowledge workers can't do more than 3 to 4 hours of really intense work in a day. That's actually well known. Some people are like, but I'm doing it for 15 hours. You're not more productive. One of the most productive people in the world, Cal Newport, has written all about this. And for his entire life, back through college, 5 o'clock, I think, shuts down the computer. The work is done for the day.
Right. Okay. Speaking of work is done for the day, we're already at 2 minutes over what we normally do. But I really appreciated this conversation. This was a good one. It got to a lot of core philosophy of why we do the things that we do.
Indeed. Looking forward to talking to you tomorrow, Mikey.
All right. Bye now.